We do not see a serious will to reach a framework that could actually be implemented. And I think with regard to Iran's blocked assets, this is in fact a very clear and prominent example of that. As for uranium, enriched materials, enrichment itself, and nuclear issues, we are not currently negotiating on those matters.
This is former Navy SEALs Commander Vice Admiral Robert Harward.
This is Iran today. There's only one group that gets the vote, and that's the IRGC at the end of the day. And that's why these negotiations are their standard procedures. Milk it out for as long as they can, try to survive through a Trump administration, and try to get much as they can without giving up anything. That's what just happened in Lebanon. The president got the Israelis to stop attacking their surrogates, one of their elements of power. And at the end of the day, they gave up nothing for it.
The House Judiciary Committee holding a hearing this morning to question the CEO of the Southern Poverty Law Center, which has been accused of giving money to hate groups. The Department of Justice last month announced an indictment against the Southern Poverty Law Center, alleging that the civil rights nonprofit defrauded donors by secretly paying informants associated with extremist organizations, including the KKK. Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan of Ohio talks about how the SPLC used the Charlottesville, Virginia incident to double its income.
Field Source 37, the guy at the Charlottesville rally, helped plan that rally, coordinate transportation there, was paid to attend. After the event where a lady was killed, the Southern Poverty Law Center almost tripled their income, $51 million to $133 million, after they were coordinating the hate that took place at that crazy rally. You run a scam, you become the standard, you don't get prosecuted, and you make a ton of money. They got $800 million assets, $700 million in an endowment. Such a deal.
A conservative activist and columnist thinks it is telling that Minnesota authorities have dropped all charges against a mob who invaded a Baptist church in January.
Robert Nye is a columnist for the Washington Times. His latest column is entitled, "What's a Little Mob Attack on a Church Service?" In it, he laments that this past week, the prosecutor in St. Paul, Minnesota, dropped all state charges against 39 people who participated in the January 18th mob invasion of City's Church, a Southern Baptist congregation there.
The fact that the Minnesota state officials won't bother to protect a church from people intent on destroying worship services shows how far left the state of Minnesota has gone and why the American people need to take more seriously this totalitarian threat that's rising in our own land. These people don't seem to care about the First Amendment. If you favor a mob disrupting a church over people worshiping in the church, then you've taken the wrong side.
Knight says, fortunately, there are still the feds.
On the bright side, the Justice Department still has 39 charges standing against these 39 defendants brought by a federal grand jury. So we'll see how that unfolds.
And Knight says if the victims were Muslim, there would have been a different outcome.
If the shoe was on the other foot and some kind of mob invaded a mosque and broke up the service and screamed at the imam, I have no doubt that this prosecutor, Elaine Cowell, would go after them with a holy vengeance.
I'm Chad Groening.
More news online at afn.net and on the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Hey friends, I want to invite you to our Call to Care Equipping event on Saturday, June 13th in Plano, Texas. If you're a ministry leader, a pastor, counselor, or someone who feels called to help others, this is the event for you. Our theme this year is From Hurt to Hope. You can join us in person or online, so sign up today at hopefortheheart.org/events or text the word event to 70919 to learn more.
We inform.
Religious freedom is about people of faith being able to live out their faith, live out their convictions, no matter where they are.
We equip.
Sacred honor is the courage to speak truth, to live out your free speech.
We also rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. Thanks so much for listening today. And, of course, we mix it up for you all week long. Walker with you Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and I'm with you on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And, man, it's been too long for being able to take some calls. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. 888-589-8840. That's 888-589-8840. And, hey, anything you want to talk about. It's, anything and everything. Could be, Iran. It could be all of the 250th celebrations that are happening right now. Lots of great stuff. I'm just telling you, I haven't been this optimistic about the future of the country in a long time. And a big part of it is because of the 250th, because of all the good things that are happening and just the massive attention to the founding era, which, of course, is what I love so much. And actually talking about the things that made us great, talking about the things that will make us great again, talking about the formula for freedom, which, let's be honest, we lost. We allowed people to lie about who we are as Americans, lie about our history, lie about our people, only talk about the bad and the ugly, never talking about the good. And so there's a warped view today about the American story and the American value system and, frankly, the value of being an American. Never thought about that, saying it that way, but that's true. So there's an American value system that increases the value of being an American. And I just noticed this morning one of the headlines was this, one of these goofball basketball players. What is it about basketball players? What do you just like hit your head on the hard basketball floor a lot? When you fall and I don't know. They are the most disrespectful. I'm trying to think of nice words. We're on the air, family program. Ungrateful. That's the word I really want to use. Ungrateful. They are the most ungrateful Americans, I think. I mean, there's a lot of ungrateful Americans. There are people that have been living off the government for generations that are ungrateful for what they've been given and have this sense of entitlement. But the amount that they've been given, other than the Somali daycare people, no, there's a lot of people that have gotten really rich off of our tax dollars because of the fraud and corruption. But these basketball players are making millions of dollars. They're living the good life. They're treated like royalty. They're treated like, just way beyond what they should be for the skill that they have and what it contributes to the world, in my opinion. But I let the market decide. If the market says that you can fill these arenas over and over and over again and people pay obscene amounts of money to come see you throw a ball into a net, then so be it. That's the market. Look, any sport, I think, that attracts enough revenue to pay the players the millions of dollars that they get paid, and it takes that player to attract the people into the stadium or the arena or whatever it is, then they deserve to get paid a lot. I'm okay with that, in terms of the market deciding that. I don't personally think that they should get paid as much as they do, but each to their own, and let the market decide. What bothers me is when a free market like the American system provides them with this significant amount of money, this obscene amount of money that they get to give them the best lifestyle at any time in any country ever in the history of the world, right? I mean, these people make so much money that they get anything they want at any time they want at just an obscene level, which is great. I'm off. Hey, look, Elon Musk deserved to be a trillionaire for what he's done, having it. But these basketball players, at least Elon is thankful. He's grateful. He talks about the free market system and what makes it possible for him to have invented the things that he's invented. And I mean, he's the Thomas Edison of our day. But these basketball players who have been rewarded with this incredible system of capitalism in America that allows for people to make this kind of money and have this kind of fame and this kind of fortune and all these things, and yet they spit on it. They literally spit on the American value system that gave them what they have, that made it possible for them to have what they have. And look, they worked their tails off. You have to, work really hard to be a successful athlete. I get that. But it would not have the return on investment if it wasn't for America. if it wasn't for the American value system, if it wasn't for the American free enterprise system, if it wasn't for competition and free market and all of those things, they would not be making millions of dollars. They'd be throwing that ball into that net in some, on some sand, grass, wouldn't even have concrete to bounce the ball on. I mean, it just bugs me that they have no gratitude for the system that allowed them to be where they are, and then they stand there and refuse to put their hand over their heart when the national anthem is played. They refuse to not only do they refuse to be grateful and pay a little respect to the value system that put them where they are. Not only do they refuse to do that, they literally spit on it. They do the whole kneeling thing, or they do the whole, disrespect of the flag and disrespect of the national anthem. And then you got this, of course, I've always thought women's basketball was a joke, but, okay, whatever, free market, people can do their thing. But then you get, I forget, I don't even know the lady's name. There's some WNBA player that, quite literally said we should not be celebrating 250 years. Slavery and all this nonsense. That, never mind her ignorance and absolute stupidity in not knowing that every nation on the planet had slavery when America was birthed, and that America was the first nation to ban the slave trade and the fourth nation to ban slavery completely. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And for her to be that stupid, that ignorant, literally, and then spit in the face of the nation that gave her the lifestyle that she has, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable, which is why I haven't watched a single minute of, my own hometown team. I mean, I'm 50 minutes from the, San Antonio, and the Spurs are in the, apparently in the championship. And, I've been to some Spurs games in the past and, had fun, enjoyed it. But the fact that those guys will not put their hand over their heart for the national anthem. Now, I get the French guy, and I think there's another player that's not an American citizen or whatever. I get the fact that, they don't necessarily pledge allegiance to our flag. I get that. They don't have to sing the national anthem, but have some respect to the nation that's making it possible for you to make all this money. And to the American members of the team that aren't putting their hand over their heart and showing some respect, shame on you. Shame on you. You disgust me. And that's why I refuse to even root for my hometown team. I hope they get completely clobbered. I don't even know who's won. I think their third game was last night, apparently. I did see some clips about President Trump being there. And, they acted like I think some clips said they were booing him. I think they were booing the Spurs. But anyway, whatever. I mean, I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of it. I want to platform and promote people that are grateful for what they've been given, grateful for the way God has blessed our nation, grateful for the way he's blessed each of us individually, and I want to just ignore. That's actually what I posted after the first game when these guys, I think there was two out of the whole team that put their hand over their hearts for the national anthem. So it's national anthem. So thank you to those guys. Where are the old Spurs, the guys that the Christian players that were respectful to the nation and respectful to the history of our country and set good examples for fatherhood and family and those kind of things. Man, I miss those guys. These spoiled brats that now benefit from not only the people that buy the tickets, but all of us, because all of these teams get tax benefits and tax breaks to build their arenas and stadiums and everything else, something I also don't agree with. So anyway, all right, I'll stop being so salty today. I'll start being a little, more optimistic, my normal optimistic self, but I just couldn't help it. I saw that clip of this gal saying that America should not be celebrating her 250th and America's terrible and we're the bad guys. Just all baloney. It's all lies. It's ignorant. It's stupid, but it is unfortunately the result of an education system that was taken over by the Marxists 80 years ago, and we're just now starting to wrestle it back. I mean, maybe that's how in today's first segment is we are wrestling it back. We are taking it back. There are huge strides in defunding the teacher unions. I've said for 20 years, defund the left by defunding the universities and the teacher unions. That's the two places where Marxism has grown. That's the two places where the petri dish that bad government and bad society expands. It's civic and biblical ignorance, and there's no more ignorant entities than the teacher unions and the universities when it comes to civics and the Bible, the two things that we need to be teaching. So what do? We take education back, and we're doing it. Homeschooling is exploding across the country. Private schools are cropping up all over the place. We're getting school choice passed in state after state after state. School choice breaks the back of the teacher unions and breaks the monopoly that the Marxists have controlled for years. So now that you have school choice and parents can make a decision about where to send their kids, what you're doing is you're slicing off a piece of the education pie, all that money that gets thrown into education every year. You're slicing a piece of that off and allowing it to be redirected, diverted to good sources, to schools that will teach values and be pro-American. And yes, there's problems. I'm sure somebody's going to call in. I welcome the call, 888-589-8840. If you want to point out that actually some of the school choice dollars are being diverted to bad sources, like schools that are teaching Islam and that are raising kids to hate America and love the Quran and all those things. So I get that there is some of that, and I think that's going to be one of the main things that this next spring, when all the states come back into their legislative sessions, and these states that have passed school choice, that's one of the things they're going to have to tackle. And that's why this bigger debate of defining religion more clearly to fall in line with what the founders intended for the First Amendment, and frankly what the Supreme Court has said, is that you don't get to use the First Amendment if you're subverting the public good, which of course Islam does. So I think we have a good case for saying you don't get to take any of those school choice dollars in any school that is going to teach this political ideology that subverts the public good, which I think child marriage and subjugating women and all of the things that Islam does subverts the public good, and therefore should not be allowed to receive tax dollars with school choice. So, all right, I know I'm all over the map on this one today, so I'm salty about the spoiled brat basketball players, and I'm excited about the education initiatives that are taking place across the country to take back the education system. And I know I only mentioned private schools and school choice and homeschooling. I need to be very clear. You also fight to improve the public education system. I am not part of the crowd that believes in letting the public school system burn down. I think you fight to improve that while we're at it. You get school choice so as many parents as possible can get out of these public schools, but you also fight to improve the public schools while we're at it, which is why if you're in Texas and you're listening to me right now, you need to be ready to show up in Austin on June 22nd to testify at the State Board of Education, which sets all the policy for public education in Texas. You need to be ready to write in and give your opinion about this revamp of the social studies and the reading list and all of those things. You need to be ready to write in and let the school board know. Get your public comments in. Now, if you want to testify, if you want to testify on the 22nd, the sign up for that opens on the 16th. And so be ready to sign up to testify and meet me in Austin. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be bringing as many people as I possibly can to testify on why it's good to teach the Bible in schools, why it's good to teach the Founding Fathers in schools, why it's good to teach American heroes and the story of America, and why it's bad to teach Islam, and why it's bad to teach a neutral attitude towards all philosophies and value systems out there, but instead we should zero in on what produces a good society. Anyway, we'll talk more about that when we come back. 888-589-8840 is the phone number. I'm Rick Green. You are listening to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green.
For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. God initiated human history and defined for all time what marriage is, and identified the only two types of candidates that comprise a marriage, one man and one woman. He also identified the archetypical union from which these candidates would derive. The prospective husband and wife both come from the ancestral unit of a father and mother. Though Adam and Eve didn't have biological parents, this pronouncement reveals God had particularized specifics in mind as to what he ordained fathers and mothers to be. Fallenness didn't change God's plan.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner, or visit the podcast page at afr.net for more from Abraham Hamilton III, Public Policy Analyst for the American Family Association. Candace talks about finding out she was pregnant. Thankfully, an ultrasound provided by Preborn allowed her to hear her baby's heartbeat.
The sonogram sealed the deal for me. My baby was like this tiny little spectrum of hope. And I saw his heart beating on the screen. And knowing that there's life growing inside, that sonogram changed my life. I went from just Candace to mom. Thank you to everybody that has given these gifts. You guys are giving more than money. You guys are giving love.
Preborn currently has clinics that do not have ultrasound machines. Would you consider a leadership gift and sponsor a machine today? These life-saving machines cost $15,000, more than most centers can afford. Your donation will save countless lives for years to come. Dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby, or go to preborn.com/AFR.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Wildmon, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. Hey, we are announcing 2 tours coming up in 2027, March of 2027. We're going to Greece and we're going to Italy. The Greece tour we call the Footsteps of Paul, and you're going to follow the footsteps of St. Paul in the country of Greece. And then the Italian tour, the Tour of Italy, Venice, Florence, Pisa, Rome. We're calling the Make Lasagna Great Again tour. And these are coming up in March of 2027. And if you want to read all about them, the itinerary, the cost, everything you need to know about these tours coming up in March of Greece and Italy, go to tours.afa.net. That's tours.afa.net. We're going to have a lot of fun, a lot of good fellowship, and see some of the most historic and iconic sites in the world.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio with your host, Rick Green.
Welcome back to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. Listening to that little spot there right before we came back for this second segment. I do it every time I hear this spot. You got to go on one of these trips with the Wildmans. I'm telling you, good stuff. Not only good fellowship and just having fun, but man, you're gonna see things that will cement your faith. When you see it and you get to walk there, whether it's somewhere around the world or it's some of their trips that they do to Boston and Virginia, some of these cool historical sites for America's birth. Either way, man, you're going to get these incredible historical stories and I don't mean just like on this date this happened here. You're going to learn about the people. It'll be like walking in the footsteps of these folks and seeing that history through their eyes. It's like stepping back in time. So anyway, I love that stuff. I love taking those kind of trips. Did that with my kids. I always tell people. In fact, I was just at where was I? Yeah, we had the Texas Homeschool Coalition, or Texas Homeschool Convention, and right before that, the Florida Homeschool Convention. Both of those huge events. And I had a chance to talk to dads and families and give some keynote addresses and some workshops there. And I stressed vacation with a purpose. Vacation with a purpose. Don't just go to the beach and chill. I guess once in a while that's cool to do. But while your kids are at home especially, vacation with a purpose and take them places that will cement the faith, that will give them a chance to see firsthand the battlefields where people sacrificed for their freedom, the places where ideas were birthed or debated. Take them to Independence Hall, to Carpenter's Hall. If you go to Philadelphia, don't just go to Independence Hall. Go to Carpenter's Hall, where that First Continental Congress happened, and they prayed for 3 hours, and just all of these cool stories. There's nothing like going to the actual places. I mean, you can read about it in a book. You can watch some of our videos, Chasing American Legends, when we go visit those places. We had created some reality shows. So if worst case scenario, if you can't go yourself, just watch it on video. You can get Chasing American Legends at our website, patriotacademy.com. But But nothing replaces or competes with walking there yourself. And when you go with the Wildmans, you get the opportunity to actually hear from these great historians like Stephen McDowell and others. Sometimes Tim Barton goes and others. So anyway, all right. I didn't mean to extend the commercial there, but I get excited about the idea of people going out and having that experience and getting to be a part of that. Okay, I cannot go without talking about Iran a little bit and some of the Middle East stuff that's happening. I am still very much in the trust the guy in the room camp, and trusting that President Trump is going to do the best he can with what he's got. Remember what he's got here. He's got an absolutely, I don't use this word lightly, this is not hyperbole, insane group to deal with in Iran. He doesn't have a real leader to deal with. When I say group, I mean you've got all these people that are factions that are fighting even themselves or independent military leaders in these regions, and just it's an impossible situation. So he's got to do the best he can with what he's got where he is. I get that, and what he's got is a very difficult situation. And as we said weeks ago, the main goals I think have been accomplished in terms of weakening them and preventing them from being able to get a nuclear weapon, preventing them from being able to wreak havoc around the world. Well, I shouldn't say prevent, because they still have the ability to do that unless we completely have a regime change, which is what I said was it wasn't the stated goal, because that's a high mark, right? That only happens if the people of Iran are able to stand up against that tyranny. So that part, I dreamed a little bit and thought could be possible, could be that God completely turns Iran around and it once again becomes a Persian people that is a blessing to Israel and America and the world, instead of being just an absolute nightmare to the world as they have been for 47 years. I don't know if that's still going to or has the possibility of happening. Doesn't look good for that. But I haven't given up hope for that completely. I think what has to happen, I think that's a ways away. I don't think that's going to happen quickly. And so I think what has to happen is there has to be some level of victory, some kind of deal that President Trump gets that brings down the price of gas, that opens up the straits to not be threatened by Iran, and there's a free flow that could pay off for decades, honestly, if the deal is good. But I think what's more likely is a temporary deal that's good, that everybody says is permanent, but it's really temporary. Some sort of deal that allows us to get through the midterms, frankly. I mean, think about what's happening right now. Trump is having to try to negotiate with all these different people in Iran. He's having to try to, balance the justifiable right of Israel to protect itself and stop the carnage that is constant for them, the constant attacks on Israel from Hezbollah in Lebanon and, of course, from Iran all the time. And so, he's got to balance that, not put his foot down too hard with Bibi, which I think is, I'm hoping that Trump doesn't make the Ronald Reagan mistake. I'm hoping that he doesn't, and I'm a Reagan guy. Look, let me preface my statements here. Got a kid named Reagan, got another one born on his birthday, had a dog named Dutch, made a documentary about Ronald Reagan. He still ranks as my 5th best president of all time. I'm a Ronald Reagan fan all the way. A lot of my beliefs and my he's like my political godfather in a way, even though, anyway, all that to say, Reagan put too much pressure on Israel. Reagan required Israel to pull out of Lebanon. I mean, it's so funny that we're, fighting over all the same real estate, all the same problems, same thing, right? But Reagan put tremendous pressure on Israel to pull out of Beirut and Lebanon and some of the things that they were doing to try to protect themselves. And it was too much, I think. There were several times where I think Reagan went too far against. He was a friend to Israel. Don't hear me wrong here. He was probably the second best friend to Israel of presidents, of certainly in our lifetime and maybe forever. But there were too many times he put too much pressure on them and made them take some bad deals, made them do some bad deals. I hope Trump doesn't go there out of a desire to get a deal, out of a desire to get this thing done. And I honestly don't think he will. I mean, even though he has, I thought he shouldn't have stopped them from just completely taking over Gaza. Anybody that looks at this thing rationally, you have to admit the only Palestinians that are going to live in freedom, that are going to have any kind of economic opportunity, the only Palestinians that will not live in abject tyranny are the ones that get to live in Israel, are the ones that get to be a part of Israel. As long as the Palestinians, and again, part of Reagan's mistake, have this ability to quote-unquote govern themselves, they should be able to govern themselves, self-government within the state of Israel, so that there isn't constant terror attacks and an education system that is raising kids to be terrorists and raising them to want to kill Jews. And that's what you get right now out of their system. So anyway, I just think Trump should have let Israel completely wipe out Hamas and take over Gaza completely, fold it into the Israeli state, phase in their ability to be able to vote and do those things. You got to phase it in because you got to take over that education system and stop the raising of terrorists and Jew haters. So I do think Trump maybe used the American leverage to stop that, and that was a mistake. But hey, I'm trusting the guy in the room. He's got to look at all of these pieces of the puzzle and say, what's the best deal I can get? How far can we go? And let's face it, he has given Netanyahu and Israel more leeway than any president in history. The fact that President Trump has held at bay the international community and the people that are anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, Jew haters, not only in the rest of the world, but right here in our own country, the fact that he's withstood all of their attacks and absurd statements about somehow Israel's controlling Donald Trump, that's laughable. But the fact that he's done that, basically been willing to take all of that and allow Israel to do what it needs to do and to do what we needed to do with Iran is amazing. I mean, it's incredible what he has done and how much the cards have been stacked against him, and yet he's been willing to do it. And so acknowledging all of that brings us to the point we're at right now, which is how does he walk that line, thread that needle to pull back some from full-scale war with Iran, and maybe even my friend Mark Meckler last night on Flashpoint said it this way, and I think this was probably could potentially be a very wise solution. Essentially say, okay, we did our job, we did what we could do. We're going to pull back now. We claim victory, and the straits open, whatever he's got to do in the deal, but we're going to let Israel do whatever they need to do to defend themselves, and we're not going to stop them. Maybe that's the balance, and then go into the midterms with lower gas prices and momentum and all those things, win the midterms, and then potentially there's another opportunity to go back and do more. I know nobody wants to say that out loud. I don't mind saying the things out loud nobody else will say. But maybe it's a temporary deal, get past the midterms, because don't forget, even with Republicans in the majority and with a Republican Speaker of the House, Republican Majority Leader in the Senate, you still have resolutions being not only offered but passed that are basically saying, stop doing what you're doing in Iran while he's at the negotiating table, which is treason in my opinion. You're literally undermining the President of the United States while he's while we're at war, while we have troops and certainly seamen in harm's way, and while that's happening, you're going to go on television and you're going to do these things that undermine what the president is doing. Pass these resolutions that basically say to Iran, "Hey, just keep holding out. Keep doing what you're doing, because if you can keep this up, we're going to make the president stop, and we're going to bring all these people home, and you're going to get to continue your tyranny." I mean, that's what these people in Congress have done. So anyway, Trump's done all this with that happening, even with a Republican majority. So just imagine what happens if the Democrats win the midterms. If they get either the House or the Senate, imagine the stuff that they will pass to help Iran. These people are rooting for Iran and against the United States, their own country, because of their Trump derangement syndrome, because they can't see past their Trump derangement syndrome to see what's good for America and our allies. So just imagine how bad it will be if they get control of either chamber, which is why it is so important to win the midterms. So I totally understand Trump has to thread that needle. He's got to figure out a way. We're close to, here we are in June already. He's got to figure out a way. November will be here very quickly. A lot can still happen between now and then. But he's got to figure out a way to thread that needle. So I don't know what that is. I'm not a foreign policy expert. I know I'm pontificating here, but I think it is some sort of peace deal that he's able to declare victory, that doesn't get rid of the regime, which I think is the ultimate victory and the best thing for the country. But it does stop the immediate hostilities, opens up the straits, allows oil to flow, gets gas prices down, makes sure there's no potential of a nuclear weapon. Those are the two biggies, right? So if they get the straits open, oil's flowing, and there's no ability for a nuclear weapon, everything else can be, agreed to for now, and yet leave Israel the ability to do whatever they need to do. And potentially we go back in after the elections. That could be the path. That could be the path. I'm thrilled that we've accomplished what we have accomplished, and I am thrilled that the Iranians will not have the ability to have a nuclear weapon anytime soon. And who knows what kind of intelligence, while this has all been going on, that both the Israelis and the Americans have been able to not only garner, but also plant. In other words, while all this is going on, how much our intelligence and our intelligence teams have been able to infiltrate and dig in and provide for us in the future, even in the next 6 months, if a peace deal is reached, the ability to monitor so much of what's going on there that we did not have before. I don't know. I would think that that's happening. I would think that we are going to be in a far better position when President Trump says, okay, we've got a deal. Now, he says we're in the final throes of an Iran deal, but that's, he's got to play that game even if we're not. But again, who in the world is he able to negotiate with at this point? But he said, I think yesterday, the straits, would be reopened in a few days, and even our blockade that has been, I think, very successful would be potentially lifted. So we'll see. I didn't mean to take the whole segment on Iran, but that is obviously a major factor for the November elections. I will say on the November elections, though, last thing as we're getting ready for break here, I didn't think this until just probably a week ago. For the first time, I thought, we could withstand the Iran war continuing and still win in November. I mean, I'm just kind of surprised that even while in complete, throwdown with Iran, our oil prices and our gas prices not any higher than what Biden did with just bad policies here in America. And, maybe people are beginning to catch on that this guy in the White House, he knows what he's doing. This guy has negotiated some amazing deals around the world, and maybe it's not all bad, and maybe we don't lose the midterms. I mean, all the redistricting battles are looking pretty good right now. From what I'm seeing, Republicans are, leaning favorites with potentially picking up a handful of seats in the House. So, hey, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but we'll see. We'd love to hear your thoughts. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. We'll be right back. You're listening to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green.
AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously. The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video When Your Faith is Illegal by Frank Harbor on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net.
Hello, my name is Andy Miller, and I'm the president of Wesley Biblical Seminary based in Ridgeland, Mississippi. We are developing trusted leaders for faithful churches, and we do that based in the authority of Scripture and in the reality that Christians can be transformed. We do that also through bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees. We'd love for you to learn more about Wesley Biblical Seminary at wbs.edu, where we're developing trusted leaders for faithful churches.
This is Bible League International. Not far from the conflict in the Middle East right now, Mahmoud was an Islamic cleric. He accepted the invitation of a Christian friend to attend a Bible study.
I was born and brought up in a Muslim family. I started reading the Bible not to know the Word of God, but to find out the faults.
The Holy Spirit would convince Mahmoud he was a sinner and there was no other name under heaven by which to be saved except that of Jesus. He was labeled an infidel, kicked out of his village, his family's left him. He's never seen them since. But today he's a pastor and a church planter. He's planted 15 churches ranging from 13 to 30 people, and he's praying for Bibles there in the Middle East. AFR and Bible League are teamed up to bless 16,000 Bibleless believers around the world, and that includes those persecuted for their faith. We've seen 8,000 sent. We've got 8,000 to go by June 30th, so at $5 a Bible, $100 sends 20, $500 sends 100. Would you call 800 yes word? 800 yes word. That's 800 yes word, or give it sendbiblesnow.org, sendbiblesnow.org.
In Ephesians 6:10, the Apostle Paul commanded believers to be strong in the Lord and in the power of His might. The reason was clear. We're at war against invisible and evil satanic forces, some with human faces, but all masquerading as light, powerful in deception. Hello, I'm Sam Rohrer with the American Pastors Network and another Stand in the Gap Minute. Jesus warned that the end days would be a time of great deception, subversion of truth, and evidenced by evil principalities, powers, and the rulers of the darkness of this world. Isn't this America today? We can't win this war by strategy, cleverness, or guns. But we can win if prepared with right armor and right weapons. It's called the whole armor of God. Are you in the battle? Are you prepared for battle? This week I'll share the 5 pieces of armor we need. Will you join with us at Stand in the Gap Radio and TV and prepare for battle? Sign up and stand with us at standinthegapmedia.org.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio with your host, Rick Green.
We're back on At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. A couple more headlines to hit and your phone calls, 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. I love this. J.D. Vance refers Tim Walz and the Minnesota Attorney General to the DOJ for fraud. So Keith Ellison, State Attorney General, and Tim Walz, of course. This was the, we saw all the Somali daycares, the machine of taking all of these federal tax dollars, funneling them through these state agencies, and then funneling that to these fraudulent organizations so that those people could then turn around and put money in Democrat coffers. It's a complete scam. It's billions and billions and billions of dollars. Overall fraud at the federal level, according to Elon Musk whenever he did his Doge research, and we, of course, didn't do enough in acting on that, but he claimed that $2 of the $6 trillion, or $2 of the $8 trillion at being spent at the federal level was fraud. So $2 trillion in fraud, just insane. But anyway, J.D. Vance says that this he's the head of this. He's basically the fraud czar. That's what Trump appointed him to be. So there's not a vice presidential duty that gives him the ability to refer to the DOJ, but this fraud czar position apparently does. He says, I've referred these allegations to the DOJ's new fraud division for criminal investigation. Minnesota state officials are not above the law. If they facilitated fraud, lied under oath about what they knew, or harassed and intimidated whistleblowers, they must face justice. Now, this is one of those deals where I go back to the lack of trust in the institutions that was a long time coming. I mean, that's been building for decades, but COVID made it just like pushed it over the edge. It just made us not trust anybody in government at this point. The election fraud, there were just so many things in the last 10 years that destroyed trust in our institutions. And when we don't prosecute obvious fraud, I mean, it's bad enough just not to prosecute stuff that nobody knew about. But when everybody knows about it, when it's so clear what's happening, both sides know it, both sides admit it, and you don't do anything about it, you make it impossible to restore trust in the institutions. When you prosecute, even if you don't get the convictions, when you prosecute these people that have made a laughingstock of our system of justice, of our republic, of our elections, of our funding, of all these things, when you prosecute them, you at least send a shot across the bow that makes people think twice before they violate the law, before they commit fraud, before they take advantage of the people that they're supposed to be representing. You make them at least think twice that, man, even if I don't get convicted, if I get prosecuted, it's gonna be tough. I'm gonna have to spend millions of dollars in defending myself. I'm gonna have to go through years of that black cloud, just following me around. I mean, it makes life miserable. And so people will think twice about committing the fraud if you at least prosecute. It's one reason I've been so bothered by the fact that Anthony Fauci was not prosecuted. That was low-hanging fruit for the Department of Justice and for state attorney generals that are Republicans. And the fact that he was not prosecuted by anyone is just shameful. And it really makes it difficult to prevent people in the bureaucracies in the future from perpetrating the same kind of fraud on the American people that Anthony Fauci did. So here we have this other fraud that has to do with all of these welfare programs that never should have existed at the federal level in the first place, that have funded the Democrat machine for decades and decades and decades. And we have clear evidence. So apparently the report that was published Monday, the committee concluded that senior officials under Tim Walz and his administration were, quote, aware of credible systemic fraud concerns in social service programs as early as 2019, 7 years ago, though public statements by the governor later suggested otherwise. 2, Governor Walz, quote, retaliated against employees who tried to raise concerns, going to great lengths to keep them quiet through including intimidation and threats of surveillance. So just break that one down for a second. The governor of a state intimidating people that were trying to say, hey, I think there's a problem here. There's some criminal activity potentially going on here. It looks like the people we're trying to help, the kids or whatever, they are being helped. We're enriching people that came to our country and took advantage of our system. And they're driving around in Lamborghinis and Ferraris and everything else. And I think maybe we ought to look into this. Oh, no. Shame on you for even raising this issue. Don't you know that you would be threatening our political machine, our Democrat machine? You either shut up or we're going to surveil you and we're going to come after you. That's essentially what was going on here. Okay, 3rd, Walz and Ellison's failures resulted in, quote, an estimated $300 million in federal child nutrition funds and potentially $9 billion with a B, which I don't even know how to comprehend what $9 billion is, in Medicaid-related funds to be lost or placed at a serious risk. So the committee and their investigation reveals that Walz knew about it, threatened people that were raising concerns about it, and that it's potentially $300 million on the child nutrition funds and $9 billion on the Medicaid-related funds. And then lastly, stolen funds most likely, quote, ended up in the hands of international terrorist networks and certainly funded the lavish lifestyles of criminal fraudsters. I mean, folks, this should be a slam dunk. So at least it's been referred to the DOJ, and now we have to see if this, I guess this acting attorney general that Trump has now appointed, hasn't been approved yet, but appointed to be the official attorney general. We have to see if these prosecutions if this referral will lead to a full-blown investigation that will hopefully lead to an actual prosecution. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how much future fraudsters will pause and think twice if Tim Walz ends up going to prison? The vice presidential nominee for the Democrat Party that obviously knew about fraud and didn't do anything about it, potentially, I guess I should say, is accused of threatening and silencing whistleblowers from being able to reveal the fraud. Can you imagine if he's prosecuted and goes to prison, how much that would help stop fraud in the future? How much that would encourage whistleblowers to come forward when they know about this stuff happening? How much it would hopefully cause the Congress, well, the American people first and then Congress, to realize the federal government shouldn't be involved in all this at all. We shouldn't be funding daycare and all these other welfare programs, child nutrition stuff at schools. Those are state issues. It was never imagined by the founding fathers of America that the federal government in Washington, D.C., that the federal government would have anything to do with child lunch programs or with child care after school. How in the world does a member of Congress in Washington, D.C. know what's best for our local communities with regard to taking care of our children? They never met them. They don't know anything about them. How in the world does some bureaucracy at Health and Human Services and some bureaucrat that's supposed to oversee this stuff and execute this stuff, how do they know what in the world in my little hometown or your little hometown where you're listening, or even your big hometown, how do they know what's best for the kids there? They don't. They don't. That's why the fraud happens. That's why it's so easy to make to siphon the money away from the kids and into the pockets of these fraudsters and apparently international terrorists. So the solution is to prosecute everywhere you see this fraud, everywhere you see any of this, you investigate, you prosecute, you get convictions, and deter fraud in the future. But you also have to get the federal government out of this business, because even if you prosecute, even if you deter, you do not stop all of the fraud. And if you get the federal government out of it, you don't need all those federal bureaucrats. You let each state do this however they want to do it. That's the design of federalism. That's how this thing's supposed to work in the first place. And each of these individual states decide for themselves how they want to handle taking care of the poor, how they want to handle education, how they want to handle all of these things that the federal government shouldn't be doing at all. Let each state do their own system. And if you live in a state where people want to have a huge safety net that basically says we're going to make sure everybody has, a college degree or a health care or whatever it might be, if a state wants to do that, that's up to them. And if they go broke doing it, that's their problem. But if a state wants to be smart about it and say, yeah, we obviously want to have a safety net. We want to take care of those who cannot take care of themselves. But that safety net is going to be only for those who cannot take care of themselves. Not these people that are sitting at home playing video games all day long, cashing checks from you, whoever's listening to me right now, from other people around the country that are working hard to pay their bills. So we're gonna make sure the safety net does not reward fraud or laziness or whatever. But if somebody genuinely can't take care of themselves, if they're genuinely physically incapable of doing that, or perhaps even when they really are just down on their luck and it's just a hard time having some sort of a local soup kitchen and food pantry and kind of thing where we take care of people and say, hey, we're here to help you out. Now, that should be done through the church. That's how you best do it. Twice as effective as doing it through the government. That's without question, and you know that just logically. It makes sense. A church is going to do a better job of taking care of those who are in need and identifying who's actually in need and not violating the system than a government program ever will. No bureaucrat is ever going to do a better job at that, and statistically it bears out. It's roughly 60% of the money when you do it through your church and in private organizations gets to the person in need. When government does it, only 30%. So it is literally twice as effective. But let each state decide how they want to do that and get the federal government completely out of that business. That is the only way you're going to shrink that fraud down to a manageable level, because no matter what, at the state level or the local level, you're still going to have human beings, and you're still going to have the nature of man, and there are going to be people that game the system and are fraudulent to the system and all of that. But the more local it is, the quicker you identify it. The smaller the pot of money is that the fraudster's going after. So even if they succeed, they get less. So it just makes common sense to push this stuff down to the local level and get it out of the federal government's hands completely. The congressman should not have one penny to play with of your money with regard to these issues that should be dealt with at the local and the state level. You do that, and you'll stop this Somali, daycare fraud and you'll actually get, you'll lower the tax bill overall because there's less fraud. The money's not going out, and people will not game the system personally. So it's not just the fraudsters that are literally, they're basically human trafficking at this point. It's not just those people that you stop, but you stop the individual from making a bad decision to say, well, why should I go get a job and work hard all day if I can get a free check from the government? Well, if I can get my groceries free from the government, why would I go, do everything I can and work 2 or 3 jobs, doing whatever it takes to provide for my family? So overall, it creates a better society, a better system. It just works. And folks, that's not a new lesson. That goes all the way back. Well, it goes way back before the founding of America, way back before even the Pilgrims. But let me just stop in the time machine at 400 years ago and what the Pilgrims discovered. They knew that they wanted to live a life according to the Bible. And so they thought, well, we're going to take care of everybody. We're going to be nice. And so we're just going to have this public storehouse, and everybody's going to work the land. Whatever they work, whatever they grow, we're going to put it in the public storehouse, and whoever needs it can come get it. If you're hungry, come get some. It's available to everybody. And they thought that would be really nice. And they thought that would work really well. And you know what happened? The nature of man kicked in. And according to William Bradford, he said, man, people started faking illness. People started not showing up for work. They weren't cultivating their land. They were just living off of the produce that other people were producing. And so what'd they do? They said, we're going to implement 2 biblical principles here. 1, free enterprise. If you don't work, you don't eat. If you don't put some effort in, you don't eat. And you get the proceeds, you get the benefit of your blood, sweat, and tears. You put in your elbow grease, you get the benefit. So we're going to have free enterprise, and we're going to have private property. It's your land to work. If you don't work it, that's your problem. But if you work it, you get to keep what you make off that. Within 2 years, instead of starving, they're exporting corn. It absolutely changed everything when Bradford figured that out. And he said it was better than any other plan they could have devised. But socialism did not work because socialism is bad, very, very bad, and it fails every single time, and it robs a nation of its best resources. It robs a nation of ingenuity and work ethic and all the things that make a society thrive. When we do things God's way, everybody benefits. When we go against the Bible, against the laws of nature, against the system that God put in place, when we go against those things, it hurts everyone. It destroys the system. Just look at these nations that have adopted socialism. Look at the nations that were communism, which is just socialism with a gun, where it has destroyed what was once a thriving, amazing place. Cuba, perfect example of that. Venezuela, perfect example of that. I mean, any of these nations, any place that adopts the idea that government's going to control everything instead of the individual, and it takes away all of the parable of the talents, the parable of the minas, all of those stories that Jesus gave us to tell us how our economies should work, to tell us how we should interact with each other, how we should treat our neighbor, all of that. When you take that stuff out, when you ignore the precepts contained in the Bible, as Noah Webster said, you get vice, crime, ambition, slavery, war, you get all the bad stuff. When you follow the precepts contained in the Bible, you get all the good stuff. It's not complicated. It works. Freedom works every time it's tried. Following the Bible works every time it's tried. Appreciate you listening today. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. You've been listening to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green.